Good afternoon and welcome to Framingham State. My name is Robert Martin. It's my pleasure to serve as the interim president this year. December 29th, 175 years ago, an experiment in democracy began. Under the leadership of Horace Mann, who was Secretary of Education in the Commonwealth at the time, and with the advocacy of local citizens around the state, the legislature chartered 3 normal schools, institutions that would train teachers who could carry forward the work of the state's and the nation's relatively new public schools. One of these, originally sited in Lexington, would become what today is Framingham State University, the first public institution of higher education in the nation for the preparation of teachers. I call it an experiment in democracy for several reasons. First, these institutions enable post-secondary education to be accessible for segments of our population for whom the doors were not typically open. Women most especially, but also members of other underrepresented groups. And it provided an education which, to borrow from Horace Mann himself, was good enough for the richest, yet available to the poorest. I choose to describe it that way because that very theme still resonates today. Second, Horace Mann and the citizens of Massachusetts recognized that an educated citizenry was fundamental to our newly found democracy and also to our economic vitality. And I quote from Horace Mann's 1848 report to the citizens of the Commonwealth. He said, "Now surely nothing but universal education can counterwork this tendency to the domination of capital and the servility of labor. The people of Massachusetts have, in some degree, appreciated the truth that the prosperity of the state is attributable to the education for which all people have received. Education, then, beyond all other devices of human origin, is a great equalizer of the conditions of men, the balance wheel of the social machinery." The theme of the 1840s is in fact the theme of today, no less relevant. We are an institution with an important public purpose. We recognize that our personal, private good is also very much a public good. The education of our students enhances the democratic process and the economic health of the Commonwealth. And just as we relied upon the advocacy of local citizens back in 1839, so today that advocacy is no less important. And in Senator Elizabeth Warren, FSU and public higher education have a passionate advocate who believes in accessibility and affordability, whose actions promulgate that education is indeed the great equalizer of people. The product herself of a public education, whom, as she describes, came from a family on the ragged edge of the middle class, she began her professional life as a teacher. The values and the ethics that guided her as she started out are the same values and ethics that I believe guide her today. We recognize her strong voice on behalf of consumers, particularly her role as chair of the Oversight Panel for TARP and in the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Board. I imagine that if Senator Warren and Horace Mann were to both live in the same era, they would, shall we say, be very simpatico. It's my pleasure to present the senior senator from Massachusetts and an alum of Framingham State University, Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. that this is my third big visit to Framingham State. The first was right at the beginning of my campaign, literally the very first volunteer event that we did in the campaign was at Framingham State. In fact, I look out and see some of you who were at that event. The second time that I had a big chance to be at Framingham State was when I became a Framingham State alum and spoke at graduation and received an honorary degree here. And the third is to be here today to say we're going to get out the vote for the next Congresswoman from Massachusetts. Now, I'm pleased to do all three of these things at Framingham State because I see this as a perfect symbol of exactly what democracy is about. You know, democracy is about, for me, about having a vision of how we work together to build a future and get out and make something out of that vision. Whether we make something out of that vision by voting, we make something out of that vision by volunteering, we make something out of that vision by, golly, running for office. But we get out there and we make it happen because we believe that when we work together, we can make something better. We can make something better for ourselves, we can make something better for our children, we can make something better for our grandchildren. And it's something we believe in. So, I just want to say a word about Washington. I've been there now, I've been there now for almost a year. And I want to say something because I think it's really important. We read a lot of reports in the press about what's going on in Washington, and the conversation is always framed around, it's just politics. They're not getting anything done, they're just, it's just a bunch of political back and forth going on there. Don't be fooled. It is not. What's going on in Washington is far more serious than that. We have truly come to a crossroads in Washington, and there is a fundamental question on the table, and that is how we build a future and what the future of this country will look like as a consequence. This is a hard fight. It is a fight about our vision of ourselves and a fight about a vision of our country. And I just want to lay it out in the starkest possible terms because that's exactly how I see it. Republicans have put their vision on the table. They have made it clear what they believe. They say the vision is you'll leave as much wealth with those at the top as possible. Minimize their taxes, minimize the regulations that are put in place on them, and that's how we'll build a future in America. Everyone will aspire to become one of the wealthiest, and somehow that's going to build a future for all of us. In effect, their vision is, I got mine, the rest of you are on your own. Good luck to you. We are better than that. We believe our vision for America is that we can all make a contribution that makes a better future for ourselves, for our children, for our grandchildren. And there are a lot of ways we do that, but we get what the core is. We make those investments in education, which is why I am so pleased to be here today at Framingham State. But we make those investments from preschool through postgraduate education. We make those investments in education because we know that every kid deserves an opportunity to build something for himself, for herself, and just as importantly, to build something for this country. That's why we invest in education. We make those investments in infrastructure, in roads and in bridges and power grids, because we know that when we make those investments together, we will all reap the benefits. Businesses will grow, jobs will grow, we will have a future together. And we make those investments in basic research, in medical research, in scientific research. We make those investments together because we know that it is a pipeline of ideas that ultimately fuels the growth and innovation in this country. We make those investments together because we believe that together we are going to build a stronger future for this country. That is the fight that is on the table in Washington. That is the fight that I get out there every day and lace up and go with the ring. is the reason I am here today, because we need another strong woman in this congressional delegation to go out to Washington. There is no one I would rather stand alongside than Catherine Clark. She is smart, she has good values, and most of all, she is tough. So I give you our next Congresswoman from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Catherine Clark.
Thank you so much, Senator Warren and President Martin. And I also want to thank Representative Chris Walsh and Representative Tom Santacander for being here and for being such great partners in the State House and on this campaign as well. And it is wonderful to be out here today at Framingham State University and see firsthand the great work that you are doing. I don't know if too many other academic institutions can boast a 20% increase in enrollment over the last several years. And the current expansion that we just toured, that's going to be an update in the science labs of this university, is really part of the transformation that Dr. Martin talked about, from a small teaching college to a world-class public university that is offering the type of education that we want for our future leaders. And we know, as Senator Warren just said, and as Dr. Martin referred to, education is the key to unlocking the American dream. And higher education in this economy has really become a necessity. And we have to do all we can to make sure that higher education remains affordable and accessible to every student who wishes to pursue it. And Framingham State University is that prime example of a public university that offers a world-class education at a reasonable cost to its students. And ensuring that our students are not crippled by the debt of their college education is just one of the fights that Senator Warren has taken on. And I am so grateful that you are here today. I am so honored to have your support. And I feel that as a Commonwealth and as a country, we are so fortunate to have your service in the U.S. Senate, and we thank you. And I have been lucky, as so many of you feel you are too, as a constituent, as an elected official, and as a bit of a super fan, I have to say, to witness firsthand the strength and the character of Senator Warren. We never doubt for a moment whose side she's on. She's on ours. And that makes her an incredibly powerful voice. And just as she said in her campaign, she has gone to Washington and she has stood up to powerful interests. And we are so grateful for your service. And I thank all of you who are here today. We are in the closing stretch of this campaign. And there hasn't been a lot of attention paid. But this is an important seat in an important time in Congress. The House of Representatives right now is controlled by a small group of extremists who are fixated on turning back the clock on the progress that we have made. And I know that those of us in this room are not going to sit on the sidelines. We are not going to let that continue. will also help if I can turn the page. There we go. Throughout my career, as both a public interest attorney and as a state senator and a member of the local school committee, my goal has been to work to help families. And that's the work that I want to continue in Congress. Unfortunately, in the Republican-controlled House, we see that politics is being put ahead of what matters to families, what matters to the working and middle class of this country. Instead of attacking women's rights, denying health care to millions of Americans, creating tax breaks for big oil, we need to have Congress focus on creating jobs, achieving pay equity, making sure that no one who works a full-time job is living in poverty. We need to ensure that every child, regardless of the zip code they live in or of their family's income, has access to what we have here, what you have here at Framingham State, a world-class education. And we must continue that fight around college affordability and creating jobs. We must keep our promise to our seniors by protecting Social Security and Medicare for the generations to come. We must address climate change now and not leave it to the future generations to have to fix what we have done by our inaction. And we must stop the epidemic of gun violence by passing common sense gun safety measures that we know are supported by the vast majority of Americans. And as a mom of 3 teenage boys in public schools and the daughter of aging parents who I help navigate a complicated healthcare system, these issues are not hypothetical to me. They're what I live every single day. And as I travel around this district, the number one question I'm asked is, why would you possibly run for Congress? And I'll tell you, as dysfunctional as DC can be, and I think that the senator put it well at what's at stake, there is always, always a better way forward. And there are leaders like Elizabeth Warren who inspire us. And I am ready to go to Washington to join her in this fight for our country. So that we can ensure that every child can have a great education, so that everyone who works full-time can care for their family, so that no one has to choose between taking care of a sick family member and keeping their job, so that everyone earns an equal day's pay for equal work, and so that the issues that we talk about as middle-class families around our kitchen tables are the issues that are put back on the table in Congress. And so that everyone has that fair shot at the American dream. But to get there, I'm going to need your help. Because Tuesday, December 10th is not a typical election day. And if you look at the 10-day forecast, snow is coming. So with so many elections in the last few years, I know there is voter fatigue and volunteer fatigue. But we need to make sure that our students here at Framingham State are both studying for their finals and helping us get out the votes. And I know this is a busy holiday season. It's easy to forget. I need your help in reminding your friends, your family, your neighbors that the election is on Tuesday. If you can spare a few hours over the coming days to get out, knock on some doors, and talk to people about why this election is important, why the stakes are high for our country. I know that working together, we can win this election on Tuesday, and we can get Congress working for us again. I thank you so much for being here and for your